I'm Daelyn Fognani, and this is my capstone, Seeking Adrenaline and Confronting Fear. There I sat in the middle of my room, soft tan carpet, perfect for any 5-year-old. The soft warm light filled my room for another carefree summer day. The rhythmic clicking of my clock, gentle breeze from the fan, and birds dancing in the sky. So there I sat wondering what on earth I could play with. Like most young girls, Barbies, Polly Pockets, and My Little Pet Shop were my typical go-to. But I was tired of playing with dolls, tired of making a swimming pool in my sink for my Polly Pockets, and tired of making my toys go on the same adventures. Slightly smaller me needed more excitement, so I waddled up to my dad with a gleam of excitement in my eyes. I asked if for my birthday if I could get Hot Wheels. A couple weeks later, I was racing my new cars all over the house. When most girls my age are asked what they wanted to be when they were older, they say either princess, veterinarians, or married. I, however, wanted to be a race car driver. The high speeds, the danger, the thrill of it all seemed like the most fun job to this 5-year-old. Then I learned how unpractical and dangerous that job was, so I gave up my dream and decided to become a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I never lost that fire for adrenaline seeking, but because of the harshness of the world, I had to exhaust the flame. Then 12 years later, the summer of my senior year rolled around. I went go-kart driving with my family and loved the rush, and the flame slowly started to flicker back on. Soon the retreat and the solo rolled around. The solo happens during the senior retreat, where we spend 8 hours by ourselves in the forest. We are given a strict boundary of how far we can explore, and naturally I figured that I would stay in it and nap. Then I saw a tape from someone in previous years, and then a trail seemed to materialize, almost on cue, practically begging me to explore. Cautiously, I decided to make a mad dash on this random trail with no regard for my safety. After 10 minutes of walking uphill, an abandoned structure entered my view. A sign with a very terrifying picture of a small boy was burned onto the weathered wood, labeling this outpost as log cabin. Trees towered over me. I walked up the rotting steps to a door dead-bolted from the outside. Windows shattered and 2 mangled chairs sat in the middle of the room. My heart was racing, but behind the fear, through the broken window, there was a field sprinkled with flowers, a bubbling stream, and the sun illuminating the field and making the river glow. I ran down the hill to the river and crossed a log, and I couldn't help but smile. Sadly, after 10 minutes of me standing in awe, it began to rain. I liked the rain, but I figured I have to leave early in case they end the solo early. So I grabbed a rock from the stream to prove this place was real and sprinted back down the hill with the rush of newly found adrenaline. I pushed past my limits to unleash the fire I had previously tried to extinguish. Seeking out an adrenaline rush is a heavily stigmatized subject that is generally overlooked, but taking risks can lead to a fuller and more carefree life. Fear shouldn't be what holds us back, because overcoming that fear proves what the human mind is capable of when it's given room to grow. Each and every one of you have taken some risk, faced some fear, either because you were forced to or you wanted to push your limits. But the thing most people avoid is actively seeking out a rush for the sake of feeling the adrenaline rush, or of being put in your death situation. No, this isn't because I want to die, but rather I want to experience life in the best way I know how. Capstone has provided me an opportunity to do things I never get to do, meet people I wouldn't have typically met, see things I would generally avoid. Experiencing an adrenaline rush is hard to put into words. It's a mix of extreme fear and the most exciting thing happening all at once. But not everyone likes this feeling. Most people even try to avoid it if possible. Adrenaline has lots of physical effects on your body. It increases heart rate and blood pressure, it expands the passages of your lungs, it enlarges your pupils, redistributes blood to your muscles, giving you a super strength effect, and it alters your body's metabolism, maximizes your blood's glucose levels, especially in your brain, and your body's ability to feel pain decreases, heightens awareness, and you get shaky and possibly a headache. And for some reason, people don't like that. But I know that it's good, even with the risks at hand. Exposure to things that scare us actually improve us as people. We're able to reach deadlines quicker. Like when you have a paper due in 1 hour, but your adrenaline kicks in and you finish it just in time. It's by no means your best work, but it gets done. Your brain is engaged, focused, and able to handle cognitive tasks more quickly. Researchers have compared this boost in alertness to drinking coffee. Your vision improves because of the dilation of your pupils. When expanded, you let in more light. While stress tightens your muscles, adrenaline helps those muscles relax. It reduces pain because when the bloodstream is saturated with adrenaline, the body's desire to stay alive interferes with pain perception. It's not a natural painkiller, but it does distract the mind from focusing on painful sensations. And while the scientific side effects are interesting, I don't think that's what makes it so good. Researchers call it the excitation transfer process, and it intensifies any good or bad feelings experienced afterwards, making you want to come back for more. Adrenaline can enhance the good emotions, but it can equally spike the negative effects. That's why there's always a strong caution advised before doing something risky. Additionally, adrenaline can even become addicting, like a drug. The more crazier and crazier things you do, the more desensitized to it you become, so you wind up having to do more dangerous and life-threatening activities to get that same rush. This is not to scare you away from taking risks, because to get to this point, you need to go cliff jumping every week. But it is a warning to make sure you only do it every once in a while. Pushing your limits with your friends is fun, but you need to let your body calm down and get off the adrenaline rush. It's important to be intentional about facing your fears, because living shrouded in fear is no way to live. God calls us not to live in fear, saying, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-discipline." 2 Timothy 1:7. God didn't create us to be timid beings living in fear. Even from the beginning, He ordered humanity to subdue the earth. Therefore, we cannot live in fear. It's the courage to step out of our comfort zones that make us stronger. The balance between the two extremes of living shrouded in fear and not having fear is very important. You need a mix of the two to understand healthy fear. With that, seeking adrenaline becomes possible. Living in Christ is redemptive in nature. He is there to protect us every day while we're face to face with fear. Because we have faith that God has given us courage to take risks, show love, and have self-discipline, we can begin to make greater advancements for all of humanity. Because of this promise, we are free to pursue our dreams, face our fears, live our lives to the fullest potential. The reason why I enjoy seeking out adrenaline is it makes me happier. It's a positive outlet to overcome the doubt that holds me back. There have been countless times where I felt lost, sitting alone in my room filled with an emptiness in my heart. For most of my life, I suppressed that feeling, my own doubts and worries holding me back. It wasn't until I found a way to let go that I became happier, happier than I had been my whole life. We can all agree that life is hard, and every day has its ups and downs. For me, the best way I found to overcome this darkness is to find a way to truly live. Let me explain. Every person has a different way of finding strengths when things get bad. For me, one of the best methods I have found was to grab a couple friends and do something fun. This past year, I did things I never thought I would, and I don't intend on stopping. First, I went rock climbing with the FRCS climbing team. For those of you who don't know me personally, I have no upper body strength, so everything was against me from the start. We started off by bouldering, and with a lot of encouragement, I was able to get up one wall. I was told afterwards it was the easiest. Then I went to my first ropes course. With Sienna by my side, I was able to make it to the top and keep pace with the little kids to my left. I was amped up. The last time I tried to rock climb, I got maybe 5 feet off the ground before I started crying, and the poor teenager working there had to pull me off. This happened 4 years ago. Mr. Wall then had the idea to make me climb an insanely hard wall. No one can convince me otherwise that it could have been easy. I get halfway up when both my arms and my legs start to shake so bad that they gave out. And if it wasn't for Annabelle and everyone gathered below me, I know I could have never made it to the top. Once I finally got back to the ground, I couldn't move for a solid 5 minutes. Rock climbing was fun, but one of the scariest things I've ever done. And that day I truly conquered fear. Later in the year, I went indoor skydiving. Surprisingly, I felt no fear. Once I was in the chamber, it felt like for a brief moment in time I could forget all my anxiety, all my doubt, and everything that holds me back. The instructor said I was naturally good at it, and she was genuinely surprised that I never hesitated to jump headfirst into the tunnel. I highly recommend indoor skydiving. It's a fun and very safe way to seek out adrenaline. Now, if you remember from earlier, I mentioned how as a kid I wanted to be a race car driver. And originally the plan was to get to ride in one. Sadly, because of the coronavirus quarantine, I had to readjust my plan. Luckily, I got to speak with John Vandermeer, who's been the president of Vandermeer Speedway for the last 62 years. I talked with him about the potential danger in racing and the mental and physical side effects. Fun fact, the record speed there is 338 miles per hour, clearing an 1,000-foot track in 3.78 seconds. And with the cars going this fast, it wants to take flight like an airplane, so they have to install wings to act as a reverse force. And because of the insane speeds and G-force, a lot of drivers end up tearing their retinas after a career of racing. Yet, despite the risk, people still race. John says that it's like no other feeling. It shifts from panic to relief. This fast change in emotions causes a huge adrenaline rush, he says. It feels like dying. From his many years of racing, he says that you never want to stop, and once racers start driving fast cars, they can't go back to the slower ones, proving the addiction-like effects. That is why they go through extensive training and precautions. It's a dangerous lifestyle, but it's also fun and fulfilling to many. Although it's sad I couldn't ride in a race car, the other things I got to try have motivated me to keep seeking out things to do. My own doubt in myself shouldn't hold me back from feeling free to enjoy life. The simple fact of life is that no one can keep all the sadness to themselves and hope things get better. Sharing both the struggles of life and the highs deepen relationships. A Harvard Medical School study of 5,000 people found that one person's happiness spreads through their social group even up to 3 degrees of separation, and that effect lasts as long as a year. And while having a friend who's happy improves your likelihood of being happy by 15%, having one who's unhappy lowers your chances by 7%. So because of this, it can be reasonably deduced that if you even go on something as simple as a hike with people who build you up, then as a group you will not only grow closer, but even begin to feel happier in daily life. Now, imagine going with a group of friends with your lives potentially on the line. A trust that is formed can strengthen friendships more than any other day-to-day encounter. Getting to experience this rush with other people is what truly makes me feel alive. Like I can escape fear and finally breathe. The sense of accomplishing something I didn't think I could fills me with a sense of pride and happiness, and the best way I could describe that is the color yellow. Now, close your eyes and imagine that you're in the middle of a field. Daisies, sunflowers, and tulips as far as the eye can see. You close your eyes, the sun leaving a warm yellow glow on your eyelids. You breathe in, and fresh, crisp air fills your lungs. This is what adrenaline feels like to me. It feels like a space where all my fears drowned out, where I can feel the most alive and at peace. I can reach the top of a peak. I race past my goal. I take the leap of faith, and I can't help but smile. As a result, I feel like my life has physically gotten brighter. This is when I feel the most alive. This is where I find my happiness. Adrenaline fills my heart with joy and purpose, like the warm cup of coffee that sets the tone for the rest of my day. I can't think of anything more fulfilling than to seek the unknown with my friends. So, when is it a good decision to face your fears? Well, anytime you feel deep down that whatever you fear is holding you back from living your life to your fullest potential. Life is meant to be lived to the fullest, and when you stand face to face with fear, you need to convince yourself that you can overcome whatever it is that's holding you back. God calls us not to live shrouded in fear, so if fear is holding you back from living, then take action to overcome it. Write your own story on how fear affects you. Speaker Karen Thompson Walker said in a TED Talk called What Fear Can Teach Us that if we think of our own fears as more than just fears but as stories, we should think of ourselves as the author of those stories. Just as importantly, we need to think of ourselves as the reader of our fears, and how we choose to read our fears can have a profound effect on our lives. Understanding this balance can breed truth and insight to our lives on the journey to learn from fear. So face whatever it is that's holding you back. You can write it out to be whatever you want. However you interpret fear is how you learn from it, negatively or positively. Take caution in what I have said, because while taking risks can be fun and fulfilling, if it's not done safely, then it becomes incredibly dangerous and foolish. Understand it's not easy to overcome fear. Understand that you cannot do it alone, and understand that you need to let your body rest. You are human after all. At the end of the day, all I want is a life that is full of adrenaline and fast paces and doing the impossible. But I never want to forget that having fears isn't a bad thing. It's what makes us human. And I challenge you to try to live the same. Thank you for listening to my capstone. There's